Hi everyone, welcome to Belle's Books. I'm Carly and today I am bringing you my reaction to the Women's Prize for Non-Fiction longlist, which I am super excited about. So prize season is upon us once again and I bloody love it. I love a prize, I love a literary prize. I get very swept up in the hype and follow along. I just love it. The Women's Prize for fiction and non-fiction are my favourite prizes to follow. So last year was the first Women's Prize for Non-Fiction and it led my reading. Actually, I looked at the list for the books last year and I thought I'd read much more than I actually had. What had happened is I got a load of the books, I didn't end up reading them. So the books from last year that I read were Wifedom, A Flat Place and Matrescence, and I loved all of them. They were in my top books of the year last year. So I've got high hopes for this year's long list. Sorry if you can hear that intense noise. My laptop is freaking out. Calm down. So I have the long list here. And what I do is I write them all down in my very beautiful Women's Prize for Fiction journal. I don't know if this is still available on their site. And I write down the list and I mark them with, am I going to read it? Do I not want to read it, or maybe? So most of these are yes, I do want to read them. So let's talk about these books and I'll tell you which ones I have picked out to read. Also, I went, when the list was announced, I went onto my library catalogue. Now I work for the library, but I was at home, and so I went onto the library catalogue and reserved anything that I could get my hands on. So I now have a lot of reserves. I actually locked my account because I'd racked up so many reserve fines that they were that it changed. It said, this borrower has no rights to borrow because you've got too many fines on your account. My library charges 50p for reserve, which is very good. Alas, I don't get it for free because I'm staff, which is a shame, but hey ho. 50p is still very good. So I've racked up that many fines. Anyway, let's talk about these. So I'm going to go through the list as they have it on the website, because that's how I wrote it down, and tell you about the ones that I want to read. So first up is Autocracy Inc. The Dictators Who Want to Run the World by Applebaum. This sounds very interesting to me. It also sounds a little bit like, it sounds very political, obviously, a little bit like Doppelganger from last year, which won. I'm very interested in political writing, in current affairs, so this is at the top of my list. And as much as it scares me what's going on at the moment, I feel like I can't ignore it and I do want to read about it, particularly if there's a hopeful narrative there with ideas on what we can do collectively to challenge what is happening at the moment in this kind of late stage capitalist dystopian world. So that is very much high on my list. I think I am second in line on reserve for that. Then Embers of the Hands, Hidden Histories of the Viking Age by Eleanor Barraclough. This first didn't really interest me. Vikings, not really my bag. However, when I read the synopsis and it is about the everyday people that lived through that time, that sounds more interesting to me. So this is about not just the warrior Vikings, but the wives and the children and all of the other people that didn't get written about. So I am quite intrigued by that. I've put that as a maybe, got it on reserve. A lot of this is just going to be what comes to me first through the library and I will start reading it. So that does sound quite interesting to me. I am very much here for the history of the everyday person. So yes. Then we have The Eagle and the Hart, The Tragedy of Richard II and Henry IV by Helen Castor. Now, I have one of Helen Castor's book. It's up there, She-Wolves. Have I read it? No. Terrible of me, but I have not read it, even though that has got major hype. It's been around for years. So I would like to read this. I do like to read about history. My partner is actually quite a history buff. He reads nothing but non-fiction, but history. So I said to him, Richard II, what do you know about him? And he was like, oh, he was a shit. So the premise of this book is about those two men, Richard II and Henry IV, and about a power struggle. And what I gather from this premise is that it speaks to very much about, again, what's happening currently in the political climate, you know, with all of these dictators in charge. So the thing that I find interesting about history is when it reflects on the current what's happening. And I think that quite a few of these books do that. So that premise sounds interesting to me, so I've put that as a maybe. Then we've got 1,000 Threads by Neneh Cherry. This is a biography, a memoir of Neneh Cherry. She is a British museum. Oh my god, she is a British musician. Get your words out. I kind of like her music. I'm not that fussed about this book, to be honest. I don't know much about her, but it's not something that I'm particularly drawn to. Musicians' biographies or memoirs is not particularly my bag, so I think I'm going to bypass this one. I've marked it as a no. Also, the other no, I've only got 2 no's on this list, and the other one that I've marked is The Story of a Heart by Rachel Clarke. This is a book about a heart transplant. So it is 2 young people, I think they're like 2 9-year-olds. One of them is like her heart is still going, but she's effectively you know, like on life support. So the family make a decision to donate her heart to a young boy. I think that's the right way around. I had it in my hands the other day at the library. I picked it up because I made a display at the library of Women's Prize for non-fiction predictions, and I was going to put that on there. And I read it and I thought, oh, should I keep this? It might come out. But when I read the premise, I was like, no, I don't think I can handle this. I cannot handle this. I think it's going to be too emotionally wrought. And Rachel Clarke is a doctor and she writes about medical things and procedures. And again, that's not my bag. So yeah, that's not for me. So I'm going to leave that one alone. The next one is Raising Hare by Chloe Dalton. And I found out about this through a podcast that I listened to. I listened to a lot of book podcasts and I can't even remember which one it was, but I heard an interview with her and I thought, oh, actually, this sounds really good. I want to get my hands on it before it was longlisted because I really like the premise. So it's nature writing. Chloe Dalton was a city worker and then moved to the country during COVID and found this leveret and raised this leveret. But the interesting thing that I liked about this premise was that she didn't do what I would have done, which was been like, oh, this tiny baby rabbit, oh, I love you so much, and treated it like a pet. She treated it like a wild thing, which is what, you know, you should do. And I find that really interesting because I know I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I like the way that she talked about it as a wild thing, and I like the way that she talked about the environment and the damage that's being done to the environment and the effect that has on not just rabbits and hares, but all other wildlife. So that sounds really interesting to me. I know it's had loads of praise, lots of people love it. Charlie from Charlie Brooke Reed was talking about it, and this is the only book that I have bought, so I am very excited to read this one. Then we have Ootlin by Jenni Fagan. This is a memoir. Jenni Fagan is an author. I have a couple of her books. The only one that I've read so far is Hex, which is which is a very small novella about the witch trials. I quite enjoyed that. The other one I've got is, what is it? Luck and Booth, which I haven't read. It's behind me in my big stack there. But yeah, she's an author that I'm very interested in. So this is her memoir of her growing up in the care system in Britain. Again, I think this is going to be quite hard to read because the care system is a shambles. So yes, that's a definite yes. The next one, Why Fish Don't Exist, A Story of Lost Love and the Hidden Order of Life by Lulu Miller. Now, I know I've been watching other people's reactions to this prize, and this is the book that people are like, I don't know what this is about and I'm not going to read it. This one, out of all of them, sounds the most interesting to me. I think the premise is a bit of a hot mess. Like, it sounds like there's too much going on in the synopsis. So it's about Lulu Miller. It's also about some taxonomist, some, I think, 19th century taxonomist. So it's part biography of him and it's part memoir, I guess, of Lulu Miller. But it's about, from what I can gather, the way that we order our lives, the world, the universe, all of that, the way that we make sense of things. And that is interesting to me. It also kind of mentioned chaos. I don't know whether that's like chaos theory. I get the impression this book is quite philosophical, which is my jam. I studied philosophy. Philosophy is my thing. So I'm very much here for this. I'm very excited about this. Okay, then we have, oh, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Agent Zoe, the untold story of fearless World War II resistance fighter Elżbieta Zawacka, I probably butchered that pronunciation, by Clare Mulley. This also sounds interesting to me. I really enjoy biographies of lesser known female figures that have done amazing things. So last year, one of my favourite books was Wifedom, which was the biography of Eileen O'Shaughnessy, George Orwell's wife, which just blew my mind. So I feel like this is maybe on a little bit of a par with that, where it's kind of uncovering this wonderful life of this excellent woman. Very much here for it. Also, I'm reading In Memoriam by Alice Wynne at the moment, which is a World War I novel. Generally, I don't go in for war novels. It's not my bag. I'm reading it for my book club. So I think that will be interesting, going from a fictional book about war to a non-fiction book about war. So yes, that is interesting to me. I'm definitely going to read that. Then we have By the Fire We Carry, the generations long fight for justice on native land by Rebecca Nagle. This is about Native American people trying to fight for their land. And it's based around a court case, I think. And actually, I did hear about this before this book. There was a court case where there was like a Native American person was killed on a reservation. And there was some court case to do with the fact that because it was on a reservation, it should have been, there is the kind of, for the Native Americans to deal with it in their own way, like through their own justice system, rather than the wider justice system of America. And that court case, I think, then led to something bigger. So I'm very interested in this. I always want to hear about that kind of stuff when it's to do with Indigenous land being stolen. I think this is also quite pertinent to what's happening at the moment in the world with land being stolen in Palestine by Israelis. And there's talk of like that land being stolen permanently and not given back to the Indigenous people that live there. So I think this book speaks to a wider issue of colonialism and land theft, which I'm very interested to read about. Then we have Wild Thing, A Life of Paul Gauguin by Sue Prideaux. Now, generally I don't go in for art books, not really my jam, but I do like impressionist and post-impressionist painters. So I'm going to give this a go. I'll try it. If I don't find it interesting, I'll DNF it. But the premise sounds interesting because, like, I know nothing about Paul Gauguin. I like his paintings. I think there's a couple in the Fitzwilliam Museum, which is my local museum in Cambridge. So might go and check those out as well. Do a little field trip. That might be fun. And yeah, so I want to give that a go. I think that is also the first book that is going to come to me because I checked on my library reserves and it's on its way. So that might be the first one I read. Then we have What the Wild Sea Can Be, The Future of the World's Oceans by Helen Scales. Also, excellent name. You're writing about the ocean and your name is Scales. Is that nominative determinism or what? So this is, I think, from what I've heard, it strikes a nice balance between all the terrible things that are happening to the ocean because of humans and a little bit of hope, as in how the ocean and wildlife within it is still managing to live. I need hope at the moment, people. I need hope. So I'm hoping that it's going to be like not just a traumatic read, like, oh, the whole world is fucked. So very much looking forward to that. I love nature writing and I am very interested in the ocean, like generally. And yeah, so that sounds very interesting to me. Then we have The Peep Show, The Murders at 10 Rillington Place by Kate Summerscale. I have a book by Kate Summerscale. I think it's about a haunted house, but it's non-fiction. Have I read it? No. Anyway, I do want to read this. Also, rather interestingly, Kate Summerscale is doing an event at the Cambridge Literary Festival, which is coming up in April, with Hallie Rubenhold, who wrote The Five, which was, again, one of my favourite books about the women that were killed by Jack the Ripper. So that is interesting because I think they probably do the same thing where Hallie Rubenhold was talking about the women that were killed by Jack the Ripper, but also she was relating it to a wider context of violence against women, and which is obviously still very prevalent today, like even more so now. It's ramping up, this misogyny and sexism culture perpetuated by this crazy toxic masculinity. So this book, I think, is going to be on a par with that. It's looking at the case of those murders that happened. I think it was a policeman, again, very topical on what's happened recently. They hanged the wrong man for these murders, and this dude, like, obviously just got away with it and carried on murdering. So true crime, you know, it's one of those things where I feel a bit weird about it sometimes. Like, do I want to read this? Is it a bit, like, you know, voyeuristic? But I think the thing that I find interesting, like I said, is when they relate it to what's happening currently in terms of violence against women. So I think that's going to be quite interesting. Then we have Sister-in-Law, Fighting for Justice in a System Designed for Men by Harriet Wistrich. This is right up my street, very interesting to me. So this looks at the legal system, various court cases, and the way that the law is designed for men. And Harriet Wistrich, I'm assuming she's someone in the legal profession, and the way that various key court cases have switched up that narrative and given women back some power. So that is super interesting to me. I tell you what this made me think of when I read oh god, what is it called? Invisible. Oh, it's down there and I can't see it. It's a book by Caroline Criado Perez, and it's about data bias in the world. And when I read that book, again, like the way the world is designed for men in ways that you just wouldn't think about. When I read that book, it completely blew my mind. So I think this is going to be the same in the way that you find out about the way that the legal system and law in general is just like designed for men. So I think that will be very good. Then we have Tracker by Alexis Wright, which is a biography of an Aboriginal man, and it's about like oral history telling and the culture of native Aboriginals in Australia. Again, that's all I know about it, and that sounds interesting to me. I'm very much here for Indigenous stories. And I know that Alexis Wright wrote a novel called Praiseworthy, which has lots of hype. Bob was talking about it, and I did kind of think, oh, maybe I'll read that, but it's huge. It's massive. So, you know, the big book fear got me on that one. I think this is also quite large, but we'll see how I get on. If I like her writing style in this, then I'll give Praiseworthy a go. And the last one on the list is Private Revolutions, Coming of Age in a New China by Yuan Yang. This is a coming of age story of various different girls in China. And again, I love a coming of age story. I love kind of that kind of very close look at how the political landscape affects individual people. So that's a yes. So most of these are yeses, to be honest. The only two no's that I've got are The Thousand Threads by Neneh Cherry and A Story of a Heart by Rachel Clarke. All the rest I'm pretty much down for. So let's see what comes from my library holds first. Let's see if they let me take out any books because I've maxed out my fines. They will, because I can just edit it because I'm staff. Okay, cool. So those are the books I am very excited about. I'm so excited, you guys. I love this prize. I love it so much. And last year, you know, the books were so strong. I've still got a load of the books from last year that I haven't read that are still on my TBR. Talk to me in the comments below, please. Tell me what you're going to be reading first out of this list, what you're very excited for. Are there any that you don't want to read? Please talk to me in the comments below. And I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everyone.